And Megan Fox here at PJ Media is explaining.
What's tip 4?
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your Dancing with the Stars.
You can still love me.
I do. I love you all the time.
Our First Amendment rights are huge. They are very important to me. They should be important to everyone.
Don't be a public official if you don't want to be filmed, ma'am.
Megan Fox.
Yes.
That's right. Get out of here.
Welcome to the live stream, everyone. I'm Megan Fox. I write for PJ Media. I'm a columnist, broadcaster, and author. You can pick up my books on Amazon.com. Today, we have breaking news out of Missouri, out of Lawrence County, Missouri, that I wanted to get on and talk about with you because CPS or DFS has a bad reputation of violating constitutional rights of parents, and it looks like it could be happening right now in Lawrence County, Missouri. Now, today joining me on the show are Jared and Ariana. They are two parents who are fighting with DFS and in Lawrence County for the rights to parent their children. And like so many stories that I have brought to you, it seems as if allegations of sexual abuse, when reported, the person who reports it gets punished instead of the person who is the perpetrator. And this seems to be a widespread problem in Missouri, and that's what's going on in this family. Right now, Jared and Ariana are expecting their youngest baby any day. And the Lawrence County DFS has made it very clear to their attorney, Kristi Fulnecky, that this baby is going to be taken into custody due to what they claim is exigent circumstances without a warrant. Now, this is not constitutional. I have read the Constitution of Missouri and the Constitution of the United States. You are free from seizure, unlawful seizure, if there are no exigent circumstances. And in this case, there do not appear to be any. So coming to the program with me now is Jared and Ariana. Thank you for being here. And I would like to, first of all, say I'm sorry that you're going through this. And I'd like to start by asking you, you had your children, your older children, removed by DFS, which under circumstances that I would say are highly questionable, but that led you to the, and that's happened a couple weeks ago, correct? 4 weeks, something like that?
Over a month now.
Yeah.
Over a month.
Weeks or so.
And you are expecting your youngest baby any minute.
Literally any minute.
Yeah, literally any minute. And DFS has already told your attorney they are going to come and take that baby when the baby is born. Based on you having other children in the custody of the state right now, and they don't have a warrant. They have what's called a CS-33 form, which I have looked up, and I can assure you is not a warrant. It is an emergency document that is used by law enforcement to remove children, and they have 24 hours to get a judge to sign off on it. They do this to basically take children without a warrant. And I'm concerned about this for you. So we're trying to get public awareness that they don't have a warrant to take this child and they don't have exigent circumstances. Now, exigent circumstances would be that the life of the child is in danger. Do you believe that the life of your child is in danger?
No.
And what is it that you are accused of what are they saying that you're going to do to this baby?
We don't know what they're thinking. They haven't communicated with us directly. We only know what we heard through the midwife, and it looks as if they're going to use the same C-33 and reason to take the baby that they used to take the other children, which is a charge of failure to protect.
Failure to protect. But there's nothing that has happened with your unborn baby where you have not protected this baby from anything. This situation is completely different.
Yeah, that is correct.
So you believe that they're simply taking this baby because they have custody of your other children, which is hotly contested right now.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, now I did speak with the sheriff's department today, and I have some, and maybe we should play those tapes now. I'm going to bring Kristi Fulnecky into the stream. She's your attorney. Kristi, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
thanks
sure.
for taking on this case. And I'd like you to listen to the tapes that I have that I have. Okay. This is a deputy talking about exigent circumstances at Lawrence County Sheriff's today. On the CS-33 form,
Okay.
it says that the purpose of this form is for a juvenile officer or law enforcement official takes protective custody. So this is, in my understanding, it's to be used in lieu of a warrant signed by a judge. So you don't have a warrant when you use this form. You have to go get a judge to sign off on it after you take the kid. And the reason you're taking them is because there's some kind of exigent circumstance. Do you know what the definition of exigent circumstance is in these cases?
It'd just be like an emergency.
What's an emergency? That's what I'm trying to get to.
That all depends on what's going on. Like life, death, if there's a fear of immediate abuse, medical conditions, there's all sorts of stuff. I don't know that I could narrow it down necessarily. You'd have to give me a scenario.
Well, okay, I'll give you a scenario. Here's the scenario.
Yeah, what's going on?
Okay, here's the scenario. There's a pregnant mom about to have her baby. She's going to have her baby probably today. And the juvenile officer has told the family's lawyer they're going to take that baby. And they're going to do it without a warrant. They're going to use this form. And they're going to do it because, according to them, and according to the sheriff, to your sheriff DeLay, this mother may have a mental condition. Now, there's no doctor's report. There's no psychological report. This is all based on their subjective opinion. To me, that doesn't sound like an exigent circumstance. Their other explanation for this is that her 7 other children were taken by social services a few weeks ago. But that was done under very questionable circumstances as well. And they're fighting in court about it right now. To take a newborn baby away from a mother can do serious neurological damage. It's proven by science, brain damage. These parents have not been accused of any abuse, no physical abuse. The only allegation is that they think the mother might be mentally unwell with no doctor's reports, no psychological reports, and the father has not been accused of anything. This is a real serious situation. It's about to hit the news big time. It already hit Springfield on the radio this morning. And I'm just trying to get from the Missouri Department of the Sheriff's Department, like, what is your definition of an emergency situation? Because to me, I don't see it.
There's all sorts of things that can qualify for an emergency situation. As far as I know, we have not seized kids from a hospital.
Well, it's happening. It's going to happen today or tomorrow. Juvenile Officer Jenna Pierce has been in contact with the family's lawyer and has told her they are doing it. They're doing it. And the sheriff, in what I understand, the sheriff's job is to protect the rights of the citizens. And it seems to me that these people are having their civil rights violated right now. In order to take a child, you need a warrant signed by a judge. Courts are closed today. Their lawyer can't even file an emergency motion.
Okay.
When they were put in front of the judge the first time, they weren't allowed to speak on their own behalf. So they've never had a fair hearing. And now this is happening again. And I think the sheriff's job is to go out there and stop it from happening, because there's no exigent circumstances here. Not that I can see. This child is in no danger of immediate death. When you say someone we think might have a mental disorder, which, by the way, is not a reason to take a child from a parent, because that's a protected ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act condition.
Okay.
So,
it sounds like you need to talk to the juvenile office and not me.
They won't talk to me. In fact, they're not even there today. Again, closed. Everyone's closed. And I wasn't able to get them on the phone yesterday either. But I mean, when you tell me that there's all kinds of reasons for an emergency, that scares me. I'm reading the law and it says life or limb. Those seem pretty narrowed to me. Life or limb. That means immediate danger, doesn't it?
It could also mean abuse, physical, mental. You can't narrow it down by just one thing like that. it's a very broad topic.
And is this written somewhere? Is this written out where a person could see what are the circumstances that are considered exigent? Has this been decided by law somewhere?
Megan, can you hear me?
Not that I know
I'm getting
of.
some feedback on my line.
I can hear you. Can you hear the audio?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear the audio?
Yeah, I heard it. Can you repeat your question? Because there was a lot of noise on my end.
I'm just playing the tape from the sheriff's office. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
Okay. You might be getting feedback if you're not wearing headphones. You might want to put headphones in. That might help.
Okay.
So it's up to your subjective opinion as an officer of the law. You just decide what's an emergency?
Yeah. I guess that'd be pretty close to correct. Yeah.
And that, do you think that is maybe rife for abuse when law officers are just given the subjective opinion to decide what's an emergency?
Say that again.
Might that be abused? That power?
I guess some people could think it would be.
Are you trained on exigent circumstances?
Trained on exigent circumstances.
Well, I mean, you're trained in warrants, right? You know you can't seize or enter a person's property or seize their property or person without a warrant, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so you must also be trained for the exception. There's an exception to that, right? You must have probable cause that you believe there's an exigent circumstance. So do you receive training on that, on what those are?
Where are you going with this?
I'm trying to figure out how I track down what's an exigent circumstance. There must be something codified in the law. There must be some training that you've received, that the sheriffs receive, or that any police officer receives about warrants and how to properly serve them.
Okay. It sounds like all of your questions need to go to the juvenile office.
But you're a sheriff's deputy. You know about warrants. You were trained. Yes?
They do a lot more different stuff than we do. The juvenile office does.
Are you suggesting that it's different, that the Fourth Amendment applies differently to families and children than it does to other people that you go to serve warrants on?
Oh, man. I tell you what, why don't you get a hold of my supervisor and go from there?
Okay, that's the end of that conversation, and that was Deputy Merith, who I thank for taking the time to speak with me, and it's not his fault that he is not well trained. But Kristi, you just heard that conversation as an attorney at law. How do you feel about the sheriff's office that cannot explain exigent circumstances?
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind, if I can just tell you kind of how I got involved in this. I was contacted by Jared actually when this first started. I guess it's been, Jared, 5 or 6 weeks ago. Is that correct? Or
Yes, that's correct.
okay. And Jared is my client, and I'm trying to help the family and protect the family. I'm a mother myself, and I can't imagine the nightmare they've been through, and if I had to go through this. I was actually, for most of the people on Facebook, and the listeners knew that I was sick and in the hospital, so I didn't take his case then, but I was contacted by him and hired by him yesterday because, as they mentioned earlier, they had been told by a social worker that the juvenile office and the social worker makes the referral is going to take their children. And so the actual, for those of you that are not familiar with family law, what they do is they take them into their care. And so the juvenile office could take a child into their care, or a juvenile officer, without having a judge sign off. Now, the reason that we're concerned, and for full disclosure, Jared's attorney, we don't know, last night or this morning, he tried to get her to withdraw. She's finally withdrawn. But I couldn't file any motions yesterday because the courthouse closed at 3:30, and today's Truman Day in Missouri, and some of the courthouses are closed. So we're in it. That's, they're in a position that
yeah, so you can't even file an emergency motion to get in front of a judge, and they're going to take this child on a CS 33 form, which is not a warrant. I want to again explain to people that's not a warrant. But Kristi, I want to ask you, you heard that tape of the sheriff's deputy explaining to me that it's subjective, that emergency exigent circumstances is basically just up to the officer.
Yeah, and it would have to be an extreme situation, as you mentioned earlier. Child abuse, something terrible that's going on in the home. There's no allegations that the parents are abusing the children. It's about failure to protect. Again, let me say that these two parents are here have not been accused of abusing their kids. And so they can tell you more about their background. That's up to them, about, why they exactly left. But their victims or family, their children are victims. You can make the argument, oh, you're trying to exploit your kids. They're trying to save their family. They're trying to save their kids. And when you have a juvenile office that, under whatever circumstances that we can't really figure out, can take your baby and take a newborn away from that mother, and then later, when the court opens next week, get a judge to sign it, and then your hearing is within 72 hours. Now, I don't know. It's been 20 years since I went to law school, but why would you have a hearing after they've already taken your baby? This has
once they get their hands on the child, you have a much less chance of getting that child back in any reasonable amount of time. And this is why they do it the way they do it when the courts are closed on emergency, so-called subjective emergency reasons. And let me show you something here. I just want to show you some actual abuse that is going to happen to this baby if they take this baby away from mom right now. According to studies, a short, sharp separation quickly causes harm. Separation in infants and children, laboratory studies show that doesn't take long for the separation to hurt them. In laboratory rodents, these changes in brain wiring are triggered when a pup is separated from its mother for a mere 2 to 3 hours a day for several consecutive days. We know that the stress to the pups is caused by the mother's absence, not by any other changes in the environment, because the researchers continued to feed the pups and maintain their body temperature. These things that happen when they've shown that it alters brain neurological development. This is brain damage. This is what they are going to do to an infant. And there is no reason for this. Exigent circumstances means the baby has to be in immediate danger of dying. I do not believe that these parents are going to kill their baby in the couple of days it would take for you to get a hearing in front of a judge. And a judge is the only person who should be hearing this to remove this child. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and the judge will eventually sign off on this. But the crazy thing is that the judge is not going to be able to sign it because everything's closed. So the caseworker told them that the juvenile office is open, so the children can be taken when a judge is not there. And so we're in the position that, my clients, if their child is taken, if their newborn baby is taken, like you said, might not ever get it back. And there was a restraining order that was granted, and the family can talk about this. We talked prior to this, so I'm not breaching any confidences. But there's actual evidence and testimony. Let me repeat, there's testimony of what happened to this family, of where they came from, and the perpetrators, the people that were stalking them and trying to harm them. And there's actual testimony and witnesses, and the actual perpetrator admitted on the stand. The mother testified. So there's something called collateral estoppel. I'm not going to go into it, but there's actual evidence showing that these people are not crazy. They did not make up the story that these people are harassing them. All
right, let's go to Jared and Ariana. Why don't you tell us, how did this start for you? How did your children end up being in the custody of Lawrence County DFS in the first place?
Well, we moved here to Missouri from Utah 2 years ago. We had been victims of crime, or multiple crimes, in Utah. We reported these events to law enforcement there at both a local level and at a federal level. There were also multiple witnesses who came forward and corroborated the type of abuse we had experienced, we decided that for our family, it was safer for us to move out of Utah in order to put some distance between us and our perpetrators. So we moved to Missouri. When we moved here, there were other incidents that occurred here. We reported these incidents to local law enforcement, and also.
Are you saying that the perpetrators of the abuse followed you to Missouri?
They continued to harass us after we came here.
And we have made multiple reports, yes, of different incidents.
Okay, continue.
So the sheriff's office and the children's division took our children into state custody after I reported an assault that happened on myself and the children. And the reason that you guys said is they charged us with failure to protect the children. Honestly,
now, during the assault,
yeah.
You were assaulted. So was your child. You were a witness
Yes.
to that, and you reported it.
I was a witness to my child being assaulted at the same time I was being assaulted.
So you couldn't stop your child from being assaulted.
No,
You were being assaulted at the same time.
I was being assaulted at the same time. That's what I
Okay.
reported to the sheriff's department. Yes.
And what
so I was
occurred
hopeful,
after
first
that?
when they responded and they took the kids into custody, I felt hopeful that they wanted to help our family and to be safe and to help keep the kids safe. That's what we want. We're victims and we need help keeping, I was encouraged that maybe they wanted to help us and they wanted to help keep us all safe in the beginning. I felt that maybe they were being helpful and this all could turn out okay. But it started it didn't go in that direction very quickly. They didn't give me a physical exam. They didn't give me a psychological exam. They didn't reach out to my therapist or others that could corroborate what I was saying about the perpetrators and the crimes that we had experienced. They didn't contact my midwife after I told her she gave me a physical exam and had records documenting the physical trauma that had happened to me from the assault. And I gave them the information about the federal agency that was investigating our case as well. And there wasn't contact being made there during the time either. I haven't heard anything from didn't hear from them directly. My midwife told me that the caseworker had called her and said that they were coming to take the baby after its birth before I'm discharged from her care under the same accusation of failure to protect.
There's no failure to protect a newborn who is not even here yet. That doesn't make sense. If you're being targeted by abusers. Now, we need to mention that you have a restraining order you were granted by a judge against the perpetrators, or at least one of them, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
in April, I petitioned the court for a protective order, and I was issued that full order of protection from the judge against one of the alleged perpetrators.
And this is also in Lawrence County.
Yeah. So that.
Okay, so a judge in Lawrence County has admitted that you are a victim of some crime, or he would not have given you an order of protection. But
Exactly.
DFS appears to not believe you. Or something. I'm confused. Is DFS saying they don't believe you?
They haven't told me. They don't. They've been unresponsive, and they're not telling us what's going on or what they're thinking. Other than that, we know the original reason that they took the other kids was under the allegations of failure to protect. But yeah,
where do the allegations come in? I'm being told that they are claiming, without any psychological exam, without any doctor's recommendation, that they believe you have a mental disorder. DFS.
That's news. That's news to me. I'm feeling really vulnerable hearing them saying that. I don't understand why they couldn't speak to me directly about that. And like I said, they've made no attempts to have a psychological evaluation, to speak to my current, therapist or anything to have any real information to base that on. It just must be something that they're, I don't know. I mean,
Kristi,
I am a victim of trauma, and the trauma has has had an effect on me, but I thought that those involved would be trauma informed and know that, someone can be traumatized.
No, they're not.
It
They're not.
doesn't necessarily mean that they're delusional or that they're not able to protect their kids. I know that they've been giving the kids interviews and physical examinations, and there's been nothing that's come up that would indicate that our parenting of the other children has involved any kind of abuse or neglect of any kind. So
what's troubling to me is that what they're saying is that an individual who's been a victim of a crime and traumatized can then become a victim of the system, stating the reason that is because they were traumatized. We had no control over what these individuals chose to do against us. We need help, and we have asked for that help. We're not receiving that help. We are being victimized.
it feels like I'm being punished for what I've experienced, and that just doesn't make any sense.
You're not the
to me.
first person. You're not the first person to come forward and say I'm being punished for talking about abuse. I have several mothers in Missouri. Theta Person, whose son was murdered by the man she accused of abuse, and the son accused of abuse did indeed murder him. He's on trial for it right now. His name is DeJuan Ferguson. No one believed her either, and in fact, she was punished when she brought the allegations forward. They took her son away from her and put him into the custody of his abuser and eventual alleged murderer. It also happened to Michaela Haynes, a 14-year-old who committed suicide because her guardian ad litem continued to put her into the care of her rapist. And her mother says she was punished when she came forward with the abuse allegations. This is a widespread problem in Missouri. No one in Missouri law enforcement is taking domestic abuse or abuse allegations seriously. They do not believe the children, and they don't believe victims of abuse either. Kristi, you've been in contact with the juvenile officer in this case. Did she indicate to you, and her name is Jenna Pierce, did she indicate to you that they are concerned about Ariana's mental health?
No, I have not been in contact with the juvenile office. I was in contact with the social worker.
That's different? Sorry, I didn't know they were different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens usually in this case, the way that the social worker explained it, the legal system, I'm going to be filing motions Monday, but the reason that this is such an emergency for anyone just joining us is because the courts are closed. And so they're getting ready to take a baby from parents, a newborn, with the courts closed, and we don't have an option here. So parental rights are one of our most fundamental rights, liberty interest as parents. So you have to have an overwhelming reason to take these children. The way that the social worker described this, that there would have to be a referral from her. It would go to the juvenile officer, which works on emergency basis, even if the courts are closed, and they can take the baby into custody. And then whenever the court's open, the judge can sign off on that, and then you can have a hearing within 72 hours. Now, for me, like I said earlier, how is that due process that your child gets taken away? And
It's not.
Hearing after,
it's an illegal seizure.
When there is no emergency. And I asked, there had been no psych evaluations. There's nothing saying that either one of these two people are crazy or have any problem. And if
did the social worker, did she explain to you what their exigent circumstances are in this case?
Well, the main reason was because the other 7 children were taken. That was the main reason for the referral. And so the baby needs to be taken.
That's not an exigent circumstance. That's not a baby's life is in danger. They didn't allege that the other children's lives were in danger either.
So this is currently under investigation. And so they're investigating it. But instead of, to me, that is just backwards. You have this is a newborn baby, and this is an emergency that they're going to take a newborn baby from the mother. And to me, the social worker or juvenile officer is not a psychiatrist. And I don't understand how, if you have, like you said, circumstances that are an emergency situation, okay, well, maybe that's a different thing, but that should be such a high bar.
It should be a much higher bar.
To violate your constitutional rights, which you have to have a compelling reason to do in constitutional law. This is a violation of liberty interest and so many interests that, and especially, which I don't understand this, how can either the midwife or caseworker or however it was communicated with the mother, how can they threaten something when they know the judge hasn't signed it yet? How can you be that confident?
Because they're using the CS-33 form as a warrant. Now let me play for you the other recording. I got Lieutenant Ford on the phone at the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office. He gave me a lot of information about juvenile officers and how they work and where their power comes from. And I think that you all would like to hear this. It's about 9 minutes, so it's a little bit on the long side, but I think you're going to appreciate the information. So if you're okay with me playing that, I'm going to pull that up right now. And I will tell you that Lieutenant Ford, he got a little upset with me, but well, I'll just play it for you. Let's just do that. The question is this: when you serve a warrant to seize either a person or property, you must have a warrant signed by a judge, correct? Unless you have an exigent circumstance, right?
Yes, unless there's some sort of probable cause that would require immediate action that would not, we wouldn't have time to wait for a judge to sign a warrant.
Right. Okay, so the question is, what is the definition of the probable cause of the exigent circumstance? There must be codified in law some kind of definition that it can't just be up to the officer's discretion, can it?
Yes, it can be.
Can you explain to me what would an exigent circumstance be in relation to seizing a child from a family to put in protective custody?
Well, we wouldn't do that. What we would do, we wouldn't just seize a child, okay? What we would do is we would contact juvenile authorities, and the juvenile authorities, since they have the authority from a circuit court judge to make decisions in the safety of the child or the circumstances, the juvenile office has the authority from the judge. Now, let's say we walked into a house and the child, we could just tell the officer was looking at the child and seeing that the child was in some sort of distress. We would stay there and essentially, yes, we would seize the child, but we would immediately call Juvenile Authority's Division of Family Service.
That's helping me. Can I ask you something about Juvenile Authority, though? You said they have the authority from the circuit court judge.
Right.
Are you saying that they act in the place of a judge?
No. What the judge gives them the authority to act if necessary. What they would do is that they would need to immediately take action, like I explained, if they felt that the child was in immediate peril, that their safety, their life, or whatever have you, they could make that call to immediately act to remove the child and place them in a protective custody with, let's say, other family members or
right. But when you say immediate peril, that's what I understand the law to say. The law says you can't do any seizure unless there's a threat of loss of life or limb. So without the warrant. So what is the definition of immediate peril?
Well, if we felt that the child's safety was, let me give you what I've seen in the past, okay?
Yeah.
I can't give you, let's say if there's a certain particular ongoing case or whatever have you, because I don't know the circumstances, because each case has different circumstances surrounding it, okay? But let me give you one situation I do know about. This lady, she was used drugs. She was constantly high. She had an infant child. She was in a house. They had rats and stuff like that. They went in and found rat bites on the child.
Ugh. Okay, so well that seems like a reasonable scenario.
Absolutely, that would be a reasonable, and that's what I'm talking about. Immediate peril.
Can I ask you about a situation that I know about where I would say it was very questionable whether there were exigent circumstances, and see what you have to say about that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on anything that could particularly be going on right now because, there's so many dynamics that could be
Well,
in
I
play.
understand that. I do. I understand that. But what if I told you that the only charge is there might be a mental disorder? Is that an exigent circumstance, or could that wait a day so we could get in front of a judge?
I don't know. I mean, it just depends on the what kind of mental diminishment we're talking about. Is the person, do they have, where they need adult guidance?
No.
Do
There's no doctor's report. There's no psychological evaluation. There's no evidence that there's a mental disorder, but it is the opinion of your sheriff that there's a mental disorder. I don't know how he's qualified. He's not a medical doctor, to my knowledge.
I don't know what case you're talking about, so I couldn't.
Jared Cope, the case emergency motion with the court because they're closed today. And I think if your sheriffs allow this to happen, you're violating their Fourth Amendment rights. That's what I think.
Let's back up here. Okay, you're fishing for about the situation because you're asking me, possible scenarios and stuff. There may be more dynamics at play here than I'm aware of and that you're aware of. I don't know.
Granted, I don't know either, but the evidence I've seen and the evidence we have and the only evidence the juvenile officer would give...
Okay, before we go any further, what law firm do you work for?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm a reporter.
Okay, well, okay.
I work for the media.
You and I are done talking, okay, because I'm not going to comment about any case that's ongoing or anything like that. All right, if you're not happy with what the juvenile office is doing or anything like that, you would really need to contact the juvenile office and...
Well, I've tried, and I do appreciate your time. What I really wanted to talk to you about was what the process is for the Fourth Amendment, under Fourth Amendment concerns, and you've given me some information. What concerns me is how subjective exigent circumstances appear to be.
And as I explained to you previously, every case has different dynamics at play and involved. So, the juvenile authorities may have made some sort of determination. I don't know, and I would be very hesitant to make any comment about any ongoing case.
And I totally understand that. Is there anywhere written down or codified in the law what exigent circumstances are?
Well, again, it's all off of the dynamics involving that particular case.
So there isn't anything written down, like you don't have to follow guidelines, like possible, like rat bites, definitely a problem. But if there's no evidence of abuse or no evidence that there's going to be imminent abuse, that's not exigent. That can wait a day. Like there's nothing that's written down somewhere.
Well, again, it is to a degree it's subject to opinion, okay? But there's several different things involved. It could be, let's say the child would be fine in the hospital, but I don't know, maybe there's something going on at home. I don't know. You would, again, I'm not going to comment on
isn't the burden on the state to prove that there's exigent circumstances?
Yes, there would be, and that's why if a child is removed from a home, I forget how many hours the juvenile authorities have to place the child or place the case in front of the judge for review to either uphold what the juvenile office did or say, we need to return the child to the parents.
I think it's 24 hours.
If the juvenile office has made some sort of determination, that's on them. But also, you got to understand, the juvenile authorities act off of the authority of the judge, not the sheriff.
Yeah, so that's something I don't really understand. How do they get that authority?
The circuit court judge. He is the circuit court judge of the 39th Judicial Circuit. Okay, the circuit court judge. Juvenile officers work for him, okay, and they derive. That's like part of our authority is actually derived by the circuit court judges, law enforcement officers, and the circuit court clerk for Lawrence. Like my authority is derived from the circuit court judge and the circuit court clerk. to carry out law enforcement duties for the 39th Judicial Circuit. Okay, so that's where the juvenile officers, they derive their authority from the 39th Judicial Circuit Court judge, which is David Cole.
Well, let me ask you something. If let's say hypothetically that the juvenile officers did something unconstitutional, would you be able to stop them from doing it if they were doing something unconstitutional?
Well, the thing of it is I would have to know that they're doing something unconstitutional, okay? And what cases they work, we may get involved, our detectives or officers may get involved in cases in Lawrence County, okay? Our officers may go out and there's some sort of problem involving a juvenile, then we would contact the Juvenile Authorities or the Division of Family Services. A lot of times, children, when they're removed, it's in concert between the Division of Family Services and the 39th Judicial Circuit Court juvenile officers. They work together, under statutory guidelines involving juveniles. So,
But if you got a report that juvenile officers were carrying out an unlawful seizure, is that something you would investigate?
If we got a report that there was something going on, we would probably look into it. But again, the thing of it is their authority is derived from the judge in the state of Missouri, not. I can try to get a hold of the juvenile authorities and have them give you a call if they will. I mean, I can't make them do anything.
Sure. Well, that would be great. I would appreciate it, and maybe you could just ask a couple questions. As the sheriff.
I'm not going to ask any questions because they have already put their matter in front of the judge, and I'm not going to question the judge because the judge has affirmed them removing the children from the home. The judge has acted and made decisions already, and that's the judge's right, and he has the authority to do that. Right now,
sir,
their behavior is their actions have been backed up by a judge, and the judge
sir,
obviously.
Are you under the impression
they've removed the children from the home already? So,
are you under the impression that judges always make the right decisions and they act constitutionally in every case?
I'm not going to question the judge. I don't have a law degree. I'm not going to.
But you did
question
study
the
the
judge.
Constitution. You do understand that your job is to uphold constitutional rights. You took an oath, didn't you?
I did. Yes, I did. But the thing of it is, you're asking me to question the judge's decision.
No,
and
I'm
authority.
asking you to check
Yes,
into
you are.
this
Yes, you
situation.
are.
No, I'm asking.
The judge has already reviewed this case and has made decisions, and you're asking me.
The judge has not reviewed the case about the
question
newborn
the judge's
baby.
authority, and I'm not going to.
He has not
And I'll tell
reviewed
you
the
what,
case
what
about the
I will
newborn.
do is I will contact the juvenile officer that's on call and ask them to call you. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, I would love that. Thank you very much.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
All right. Okay, so let me put you guys back up here. Sorry, I had you taken down for a minute. What do you think about that? The sheriff says, I don't really care if there's constitutional problems. I'm not going to question a judge.
I'm troubled by that because he also said he's taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, and a part of their duty is to uphold our rights as citizens.
That's right. I agree with you. And I was very deeply concerned by that conversation myself, because here's another thing I learned. When we're talking about juvenile officers, they're not under the sheriff's department authority. The juvenile officers apparently work for the court and the judge. They just work for the judge. And I don't think that they take an oath to uphold the Constitution. I would like to find that out. That's something I'm going to be looking into. If I can ever get the juvenile officers to give me a call back, which I have not been able to do yet. But I would like to know if they take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court has said that losing parental rights is akin to a death sentence. That's how high of a loss that it is to parents. And because of that, the standard of proof must be higher than this. And I'm quite disappointed in the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department that they are not properly trained on what exigent circumstances are. And I can't even get a straight answer. And both of those, the deputy and the lieutenant, both told me that it's highly subjective, that basically it's up to the officer to make that decision. Kristi, what do you think about what you just heard?
It's subjective. That has concerns to me because we know certainly the child will experience trauma that can affect the rest of his life if he's taken immediately at birth. And even if, it goes before a judge within a few days, that trauma will have already occurred.
That's right. The trauma will already have been done. The opportunity to breastfeed.
The opportunity to breastfeed will have already been damaged irreparably. And so he will certainly undergo trauma, where if he is left with me, it's just completely subjective. And one thing that we didn't bring up is we've been fully compliant with the safety plan that the caseworker worked on with us to ensure that in the short run, until they're able to finish their investigation or assessments or whatever they're doing, the baby and I are in a safe location, being monitored by others, so that they can be assured that whatever subjective concerns they do have, that we're safe in the meantime. And I'm we've been fully compliant with everything they've wanted, and will continue to be. I am concerned that they're putting off doing a psychological evaluation of me until I've not just undergone the traumatic assault that happened, and then had all of my children taken away, but had to undergo a birth and a separation from an infant, and then I'm in the postpartum state, trying to deal with all of that, and then they psychologically assess me. That's terrifying to me. So
yeah, that's really interesting too,
where
because
they've known about this situation for over a month now, and they haven't even scheduled psych evaluation. So how is it that they're so concerned about this situation, yet they haven't taken that very important step, knowing full well that the birth was approaching?
That's right. That's a good question. It's a very good question.
Megan?
Yes, Kristi.
Can I jump in here? There's something that's really important, and two, for those that are joining us, the reason that this is an emergency is because normally we could fight this in court, but a baby is going to be taken, and I can't file anything or do anything in the court system. I want to bring this up because the juvenile office has an attorney, which is a private attorney, not in the system. They are a private attorney, okay? So I don't know what that attorney has to look at. I don't know the background of this judicial officer that's going to take upon him or herself to decide before seeing a judge what these circumstances are. This is up to a juvenile officer that we don't know is I assume not a lawyer, because they're represented by a lawyer, but you don't know what the background of this person is. There's a legal thing, a term of art, and a legal rule called collateral estoppel. So you cannot retry or relitigate any of the issues of fact or law from a previous case. As I mentioned in the beginning, there is a restraining order that was placed after a hearing in the same court, different judge, same court, and they were granted that. And there were facts, and there was testimony and evidence. And so, my argument is, if they try to take a child and there is evidence in the same court and a previous order that was granted, then they are retrying these issues. This mother went through all of this trauma. She's not making this up. The parents are not making up that the perpetrators came, they were leaving, and they're the victims, and they're trying to escape this harassment.
And a judge in the court in Lawrence County has agreed. So who is the judge? Who is the judge in charge on the custody issue, and the judge on the criminal issue?
I just want to finish this thought. That
sure.
If the attorney is listening or finds out about this of the juvenile officer, that attorney better look at what happened and the testimony in this previous case, which was just fairly recently. I mean, Jared, I think, when was the restraining order hearing? Was that, how far long or ago was that?
It was at the end of April. I think it was April 23rd, but I'll have to look that up to get the exact date. So
we're talking about just just a few weeks. But the judicial officer better consult the attorney. The attorney better know that there's evidence and testimony
on the court record
what these parents are saying. These parents have all the evidence in their favor and their baby's getting ready to be taken, and we can't go to court or argue until next week until the court's open.
And of course, and they do this on a Friday when the courts are closed because of this holiday. And then there's an entire weekend where they get to keep the baby away from mom. This is outrageous. It should never be done. And the sheriff of Lawrence County ought to be ashamed of himself that he doesn't even have the wherewithal to investigate whether or not constitutional rights are being violated in this case. See, that's all I was trying to bring to the attention of the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department was, what if constitutional rights here are being violated in this case? Can't you get off your ass for a minute to go find out? Like, can you do your job? Can you go investigate? Can you do something, Sheriff? And Delaney, I think his name is Delay. Is that right? Sheriff Delay. I haven't been able to get Delay on the phone. However, I did talk to Lieutenant Ford, and it doesn't seem like they're all too concerned about constitutional violations. As long as a judge agrees, they'll do whatever the judge says. I wanted for the people in the chat room real quick. I just want to recap that this family was a victim of a crime. And the reason why their children were taken from them is they've been accused of failure to protect the children from that crime. Now, I'm not sure how you're supposed to protect your children from a crime in process. I had no idea that people could even do this, that they could take your child when you are the victim of a crime and you couldn't protect your child from that crime that you are also a victim of. But it seems crazy to me that if you're a victim of a violent crime, the violent crime is happening to you and happening to your child, and you can't stop it from happening, and somehow you're responsible that you didn't protect that child. You know, this happened to Melissa Hegemeyer too. That's how her child got taken away from her, was failure to protect. Her ex-husband was beating the child. She jumped in front of the child and took the beating instead. And they still took her child, and they said failure to protect and gave the child to the abuser, if you can believe that. And this is also in Missouri. Sorry, Jared, I interrupted you. Go ahead and please make your point.
Yeah, I would like to mention that there are other law enforcement agents involved in the case at a federal level. This information was given to local law enforcement, and we gave them the contact information in order to reach out to them. However, we were told that contact did not take place for some time after the report was given to them.
Have there been any arrests? Have there been any arrests made against the perpetrators?
Not that we're aware of. However, even in the restraining order hearing, one assailant admitted to participating in acts that could be considered harassment and stalking.
So there's one admittance but no arrest. But you do have a
Yes.
restraining order.
Yes.
And whose jurisdiction did the crime happen in?
Lawrence County Sheriff's Department.
Lawrence County. So Lawrence County got a report from you that you were the victim of a violent crime, and so was your child. And they have the perpetrator's name, but they made no arrest.
No.
And they have not arrested anyone. Why hasn't the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department arrested anyone in this case? I don't understand this.
They haven't contacted me since I made the report. And every time I've attempted to call them or talk to them, they've been unresponsive.
And that's troubling to me because we're the citizens of the county. Why aren't they upholding our rights in the first place? And then in the investigation, why aren't we being included in the progress of the investigation of what has happened to us?
Do you have a detective assigned to your case?
Yes.
Have you tried to follow up with that detective?
Yes, many times, many times.
And the detective just does not return your calls?
Doesn't return my calls. They don't respond to emails. They no response. Completely no response.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. I don't understand why the law enforcement is not doing their job. Kristi, is there anything that can be done on the legal end to push this investigation into the assault on this family, to put some fire under them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that you can do, in a criminal law court, and as far as filing injunctions and that kind of thing. But the problem is that everything's closed here. That we have a county that's closed, and earlier what you were saying is, you're blaming the victims for this, the violence that they received from these perpetrators, and that's like trying to blame a rapist for the rape, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And so a failure to protect, I just don't understand that, and so that is just very puzzling to me. But anything that you can do through the court system, we're going to do it. Whatever it is, we're going to do it, and I'm going to fight for this family to get their 7 kids back. But the reason that we're on here and my clients are at their wits' end, because this is an emergency. You have the court is closed and the baby is about to be taken, and the juvenile office said that they have authority to take this child without a judge's signature. And then after the judge is gone, after the baby is gone, then the judge will approve it, and then you can have a hearing.
I'm being told, Kristi, that CaseNet is open for filing and that you could do an electronic filing today. You might want to try that. I know that there's no judge to see it, but at least it would be in today. So you might want to try that.
Yeah, and I had many conversations with the clerk yesterday, but the clerk told me that at least that covers the juvenile area, that I was not allowed to put my entry in until the other attorney.
Right.
So
that's the other. Okay. So I've talked about this before on this program. One of the things that the cabal of attorneys do, the ones who are colluding together to harm families in Missouri, one of the things that they do regularly is that when they are fired by a family, they do not withdraw from the case. They do not put they don't file their withdrawal with the court. This makes a new attorney, because you're a new attorney coming into this case, Kristi,
Right. Mm-hmm.
This makes it impossible for the new attorney to get access to the records and to file anything on their behalf, because you're not the attorney of record. I did contact the former attorney yesterday, and unfortunately, I only got the tail end of it on the recording. I wish I'd had the whole thing on recording, because it was a great conversation. And I asked her point blank, why have you not filed your withdrawal when you've been fired off a case? And she immediately started yelling at me. I did that. So, well, the clerk says you didn't. The clerk says it's not there. And then she hung up on me. She said, you have no right to this case. It's a juvenile case. It's sealed from the public. I said, well, that's too bad. I already know about it. So it's public now.
The reason there's different levels for those that don't know, there's certain levels where they'll seal a case and close a case, and they do it for the protection of the children.
So they say.
Unfortunately, that, as you know, Megan, when you interviewed me, I'm involved in the St. Louis family court corruption, the alleged corruption in St. Louis. But it's very hard to get information, even if you're another attorney on a case, if you're coming in, if the attorney has it withdrawn, and, reporters can't see it. And so if there's any kind of colluding, which there's evidence now in St. Louis, if there's anything going on that's fishy, not saying that it goes on everywhere, but there would be no way of knowing. And that's
right. There's no transparency. There's none.
There's no accountability either.
And they claim it's for the privacy of the children, but the truth is that's just garbage, because media does not dox children. We are not in the business of doxing children. We're not in the business of ratting out who children are, minors are in court processes. Transparency in courtrooms is essential for free Americans and to keep our process accountable. And right now there is no accountability in Missouri, and no one is looking over the shoulders of any of these people. Jared and Ariana, I just want to ask you before we finish here, what is it that you want to do? What going forward can the public do to help you? And what would you like to say?
I think it would just help to know that we're not alone, because it's been a really tough go. Trying to finish a pregnancy and feel like I can let go in the way I need to have a good birth and a peaceful birth has been excruciating. And the stress level that I am experiencing is already affecting the baby, and I worry about that. And I do worry about people who listen to this story, and that it will make them not want to report crimes or abuse, because I feel like either way I'm being told that it's my fault because I failed to protect my kids, or it's my fault because the trauma has taken a toll on my mental health. And either way, I feel like it's a situation that where I'm being punished, and I just want help. I just want help. I want to keep my kids safe, and I want to be safe from further abuse.
We ask that people contact their local representatives and their local state senator and tell them what they have witnessed here and what they can see in the other cases in St. Louis. People need to talk about it. We need to talk to the people who can do something about it. We're asking for people to do that, not just for our baby, but to do it for their own children. This is not a unique case. This is happening across the state. People need to get involved. I don't want to see another person going through what we're going through right now, because this is wrong. What is happening to us is wrong. Our rights are not being upheld. We are not being protected. Law enforcement has failed to protect us, and something needs to happen to keep that from happening to other people.
That's right. Do you know who the local representatives are there in Lawrence County? Anybody know?
I've reached out to State Senator Moon and his office to talk about the situation. And
Did you get anywhere there?
Sadly, no. They said that they're not aware of a legislative solution that they can use here, which is absolutely amazing to me after learning more about this process and what Children's Division does. I really think there is a solution here, and it needs to be investigated, particularly now that I'm aware that it's happening across the state.
Yes, it is happening. It is happening. You can see my reporting. I've done a 14-part series on judicial corruption in the family court system that is happening all over Missouri, and that can be found on pjmedia.com. And if you look up under columnist under my name, you'll find all the reporting that I've done. And I even traveled to Jefferson City. I went to see senators myself to bring them the information that I have, including what I believe is evidence of serious fraud against the citizens of Missouri. And, I asked for investigations myself. I asked for them to start investigations, start hearings. And so far, it feels as if not many people are listening. I would like to send a shout out to Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, who I believe will care about this case. I would encourage you to please contact her office as well, because she is taking stories of victims that are going through this. And she's been the only senator to really give us her time and her attention to this matter. So, I would encourage you to reach out to her, and I'm going to be sending her this story after we get off the air here, and hopefully something can be done. Kristi, what about local House of Representatives?
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing because you have ongoing court cases. So, a lot of state reps and senators are going to say they can't do anything because they can't get involved with that. But problems in the family courts have been going on for 20 years. And I started off with one case in St. Louis County, and it has spread like wildfire. Everybody started speaking after you broke the story, Megan. This similar case, similar to the Copes case, happened in Kentucky, where a family had their 7 children taken away. They become advocates in the United States for parental rights because they were there was a pediatrician that reported that one of the children had anorexia. And the parents
I remember this case.
Yeah, and the parents tried to tell and explain that the father said, I was tall, I went through the same skinny period, and tried to explain about this anorexia. Took all the children, and they haven't seen them. I believe I'd have to look again. I think maybe they said it was 5 years, but parental rights and your constitutional rights are very sacred, and your liberty interest is something that, if it's going to be violated, it has to, the bar.
There has to be a high bar. Yeah. There has to be a legitimate reason. This reason that they are stating for taking this baby is not legitimate. It's not exigent. I don't think it fits any definition. Although in Missouri, it appears that the definition of emergency exigent circumstances is up to the total subjective opinion of the officers involved. And I just don't know. I don't know what can be done. I do want to.
Oh, I'm just going to say the way it's going to change is by shining a light on it, that these victims, all of them come forward and shine a light on this, because they've been saying for 20 years that all these people that are claiming that their rights are being taken away are crazy. Mm-hmm. When you have numbers of, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say that the best way to look at this is, what if a person off the street took a newborn baby from a mother and then said, don't worry, I'll take it before a judge in 3 days? What would happen to that person? Would that person be arrested? Would that person be prosecuted?
I would hope so, certainly. Yes. I mean, but these people have been given the authority of the court, as you heard from the sheriff, the authority by the judge himself. And unbelievably, this is just going on under the color of law. They're violating your constitutional rights under the color of law, and there doesn't appear to be anyone who will stop them from doing it. I want to show you.
Understand after the report of the crime that they would want to make sure my other kids were safe until they'd had time to investigate it and make sure that there wasn't any immediate threats. But that's been weeks and weeks now, and that situation no longer applies, and it doesn't apply to this infant. So they've had time to assess the situation.
I've just put up on the screen here the contact information for Lawrence County Social Services Division of Children's Division. If you feel so inclined to give them a call and tell them what you think about this case, I think that they should hear public pressure. I think is the only thing that is going to stop this from happening right now is public pressure. So you can contact Lawrence County at 417-678 1228. That's 417-678-1228. And then I also would like to share with you the sheriff's office information because they are also involved in this in Lawrence County. His name is Sheriff DeLay. And let me see if I can share that with you as well. Sheriff DeLay is at the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department. Now, Kristi, is he a elected official? Because some sheriffs are and some sheriffs aren't in Missouri, I know.
Well, I know that we in Greene County elect our sheriffs. I would assume that he is elected.
Okay, well, we're not sure, but most people in elected positions don't like public pressure. And this is Sheriff DeLay. He is at 417-466-2131, 417-466-2131. He is not in the office today. I tried to get a hold of him, but they're on some kind of strange holiday that no one knows about except some people in Missouri. And they are not in the office, but that does not mean that you can't leave voicemails for these people. This family deserves their due process. Mm-hmm. If they are guilty of something, let them go to court in front of a judge before their child is ripped from them, before the state steps in and exercises its authority. I don't think it has legally. Let's let them have their due process in their day in court. Their attorney has a right to take this before a judge, and that's what we're asking for. We're asking the sheriff's department to step in and stop the juvenile officer in Lawrence County, Jenna Pierce, from taking custody of this child the moment this child is born. There is absolutely no reason for this. Public pressure is the only thing that is going to stop this. And I really encourage those of you listening to reach out and calmly and politely and demand that constitutional rights be upheld in Lawrence County. This is not North Korea. This is still America, last time I checked. And we need to uphold the Constitution of the United States that says we are free from unlawful search and seizure without a warrant signed by a judge. And unless they have that, they should not be able to get one finger on that baby. Not one finger. This family has obeyed every request from the juvenile officer. They've done the safety plan from the social worker. They are in compliance. There is no reason for them to take this child when she has already removed herself from the situation. Mom is in a safe place. She's being supervised. She is being watched. She is okay. And the baby is going to be okay. But the baby is not going to be okay if strangers remove that baby from his mother's breast and take him to a stranger. That is abuse. It will cause brain damage and neurological disorders. And that's on the state. And if they want to continue down this road, Kristi, I believe they have liability, don't you?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially in this situation where a court is closed. And again, I just think it's, a custody case is different than changing legislation. But I don't see how you can have a hearing after the fact when your child's gone and nobody exactly knows what evidence you have to that you took the child in the first place.
Well, and I don't think it's exigent circumstances to say because their
Yeah.
older children are in custody, we have a right to take the newborn too. No, you don't.
Right.
No, you don't. That's not an emergency situation. An emergency situation is rat bites. You heard the man. You heard the lieutenant. They go into a house, they see an infant with rats running around and rat bites on them, on the child. That is an emergency situation. I highly recommend taking
Yeah.
custody of that child. But you go into a situation and there's no evidence of abuse and and she's following a safety plan. She's doing everything they told her to do. That is not an emergency. This is baloney. And if they can make that an emergency, they can make anything an emergency, and you have no rights under the law.
And again, this couple had not been accused of abusing their children. This
Right.
is a failure to protect. This is not that they abuse their children.
Which is crazy. That's crazy in the first place. And I'm so tired of these stories, Kristi. I keep getting them over and over and
Yeah.
over from Missouri. There is a problem in Missouri when it comes
Yeah.
to abuse situations. People do not believe women or children who say that they are being abused. And this is a sick and twisted system we have that is awarding abusers. And Lawrence County Sheriff's Department needs to be investigated, I think, for why they haven't made any arrests in the case, why they're not calling this family back to update them about the criminal investigation that's supposed to be going on in their case. And instead they're being punished. It looks like they're being punished. So,
Yeah. And
you know,
Megan, everybody is one step away to losing your constitutional rights. You are one step away. Do you think that this family is unique? This could happen to anyone. This
That's right.
could happen to anyone. And your due process could be violated. And this is an emergency situation. And people need to listen up because this could happen to you. I mean, this is a family that had 7 kids, almost 8. And they're about to lose their 8th newborn baby. This could happen to you. That's why it's so important. It could happen to any of us. And,
That's right.
I just feel so bad for them. I mean, that's not even, the words can't describe being an attorney and then have nowhere to go and no one to help you. I mean, it's just sick. The whole thing is sick.
I agree. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Kristi Fulnecky, attorney at law, and also Jared and Ariana. We will be following your story very closely. Please keep us updated on what happens, and I will continue pushing to get a hold of the right people to bring attention to this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Megan, for covering
Thank you
that.
very much for having us. And again, please, anybody, please pick up your phone and make a call. Make a call to somebody. Make a difference. Share this video with other people. Please do something now. We need
Thank
your
you
help.
so
Our
much.
baby needs your help.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to end the stream now. I know that the family and Kristi have work to do, and I hope that Kristi can get some things filed with the court today, hopefully. And I'll keep you guys updated as we go along. Certainly, I'm going to keep on this story, and we will bring to you updates as they come. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please like and share this video with as many people as possible. And if you love what we're doing here, and if you think our investigations are worthwhile, I would encourage you to please visit the GoFundMe for our investigation fund, because we are raising money to investigate stories just like this. And I don't have the budget of CNN. I'm a freelancer. I'm on my own. And this is, these kinds of stories really need, they need a budget in order for us to get on the ground in St. Louis and cover these stories the way they should be covered. We need your help. If you can send $1, $5, anything will help. I've put in the comment section the investigation fund, and if you could visit that today and even just share it. If you can't give today, just share it with your friends and family, and maybe they can. But your funds have already helped me find stories like Theda Person, who lost a son to murder because of the system, and like Cindy Randolph, whose daughter Michaela Haynes committed suicide because of court corruption. It is so important that this investigation continues, because right now we're the only ones doing it. St. Louis Press is not covering this story, and you should be asking why. That's another thing that you can do today. Call KMOV, call Chris Nagus, ask Chris Nagus to stop going after squatters and start investigating what the hell is going on in Missouri DFS and what the heck is going on in the court system. Call the Channel 11, call Channel 2, ask them why they're not covering this. Ask them to get down to the sheriff's office in Lawrence County and find out what the heck is going on in St. Louis, what the heck is going on in Missouri. Call the press and put some pressure on these people. All right, we'll be back later to update whenever I have any updates, and we'll talk to you again soon.